I don't. No.
Well, we're definitely live
Just
now, so
confirming.
okay, we're going to speak about it. I don't think there's any reason not to. So yes, that's a abrupt way to start. I saw the face quickly shift to panic, quick panic as soon as we went live. But hello everyone, as we have people to join in. I'm very tired. I just want to point this out. I don't know why though. I slept. I had no uni today, but I'm still quite tired. So maybe this can pump me up. But hello everyone. We're back again, another week of the rest. A lot to speak about this week. Some big bombshell breaking news, which was very handy. As on was a Monday night, I was looking at the weekend's games. I was like, "Gee, not a lot to speak about." And then we got some things to speak about, which is good. I'm joined as always. I'm your host, Ari and Nathan. I'm joined as always by Nathan, my friend. How are you going? How was your weekend, including what happened on Sunday? But excluding what happened on Sunday, how was your weekend? How was your time since we last spoke?
Yeah, pretty good weekend. A lot of 18s footy, so some good things to come out from that. Sunday obviously not as good, but just got to focus on the positives. Like we've learned that now that inevitably there will be this insanely big negative just sitting on top of our head, but you just got to work around it.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing, and we move past it.
Yeah,
and pretend like it never happened.
At least now we have kind of forewarning that it's going to happen. Like we know, like we kind of knew Sunday 7 o'clock we'd be depressed, so we could at least like work around it. Yeah, like you said, it was good. Yeah, it was good. My weekend, good, chill. Just kind of went through the motions. I don't think I did anything that exciting, but yeah, a good weekend of footy besides what happened on Sunday. If we can quickly just, I don't know, wrap up the week, but obviously the Dreamtime game was great. That was obviously very exciting. Essendon getting the chocolates. Port Adelaide winning, which we'll speak on. That was a thriller, and of course Interchange Gate, which we'll speak on as well when it comes to the footy side of things. So yeah, actually, barring and of course the last game of the round was actually quite good, surprisingly. St Kilda Giants, by all accounts, was actually quite an entertaining game. So, barring obviously what happened, the larger than average size elephant in the room. It was a good weekend nonetheless. But let's actually kick things off. And obviously, a lot to speak about. The main story is the Dimmer bombshell, which will be the main talking point of this episode. So, put the kettle on. This will probably go for 4 hours, knowing us. So yeah, Dimmer, of course, going to go through what's next for him, what's next for Richmond, who coaches them next. We're going to speak on Adelaide because Nathan is insistent that we do that. We're going to speak on Port Adelaide because I'm insistent that we do that. And then, of course, we'll speak on Interchange Gate, in brackets Gate. And then, of course, with the round 10, 11 even. 11? Yeah, round 11 preview, where a lot of interesting games will be on the weekend. So, yes. Yeah, 7 stages of grief. Yes, I think I went through those. I think I went through most of them before even the game. I went through the anger of the fact that it was actually happening, and then I rattled through the depression well and truly when Jack Crisp kicks a goal at it from the goal square. That's really when it started. But anyway, we're not here to speak about that team because that team is going to be the death of us. What we're here to speak about is the rest, obviously, and obviously it did start with the Dimmer bombshell Monday afternoon. Was it Monday? Yeah, Monday night afternoon. Reported broken news by Tom Morris on SEN is that Damien Hardwick would quit the Richmond Football Club effective immediately, basically from the next day. Firstly, where were you when you found the news? Where were you when you found the news? Because I was just sitting at my desk, refreshed Twitter, and just went, "What the hell?" Because it was out of nowhere, to say the least.
Well, no, I was at home. I just hopped on Twitter, and it was the first thing I saw. I think your tweet was the second thing I saw. So
no, yeah,
it was. I don't know what. Like it was. I wasn't shocked, but like not because it's like, oh yeah, I expected him to quit. It was just like, that sort of you see it and you're like, oh, like you just don't really initially take it in, and then after a while you're like, oh, like that is very odd actually. Like that is pretty. I think the way it came out was just adding to it. I feel like the news coming out a different way, probably we wouldn't really be having this discussion as much. Like it would just be like more of a reflecting than anything. But now
Yeah,
it's sort of like how it happened, the way it happened, which was pretty. It was nuts, and then it
yeah.
was so much controversy added to it that I feel like it took away from the actual news itself.
Yeah, well, we'll address the elephant in the room when it comes to that, and then we'll address that quickly, and then we'll move on to actually the actual story. But of course, how Tom Morris broke it, of course, a very controversial media figure, that goes without saying, considering recent events. But the way obviously he broke it, he got tip of it that morning. He was told to hold off until the next morning. He was like, "No, you just released it." It's divided a lot. It's divided a lot on Twitter, especially as it always does. Just quick thoughts on it, because this isn't the story, but I think it's too big of an issue not to focus on for at least a brief moment. Do you have an issue with how it was broken, or do you just think that's he did his job and you can think of what you want of him as anything else that's not relating to this, but in this case he did his job, or do you think that does it leave a bit of taste in your mouth?
No, I don't really have an issue with it. Like, to be honest, I feel like that's on the club, if anything. Like,
Yep.
why would you say it? Why would you say it if you know the risk and it's not illegal for him to report that? There is nothing that isn't stopping him from doing that. So I don't really see the issue in it. That's his job. Yeah, I'm not really sure why the club told him if they didn't. That just sort of baffles me a little bit. I'm not. It sort of makes me think the players knew.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I would
I
I
don't
would
know.
agree. Yeah.
It's just very odd.
Yeah, my issue is more like Tom Morris did his job, right? If like other journalists have come out and said if they were in that position and didn't and had the leak and didn't release it, they would be getting a bollocking from their boss, and right, because that's his job. I agree. It's really the fault of the club, if anything. The fact that it got out, I think they had to look at themselves before they look externally. But I understand where it's coming, where people are coming from. By like, yeah, the player should have known, but at the end of the day, he did his job, and that's the callous world the media world can be at times. But that's not the real story. Let's move on from that. Yeah. So what like obviously the initial reaction is shock, naturally, right? And then it goes to what actually was it? Was it did he get sacked? Did something happen? What is the reason behind it? His reason is burnout. Do you buy that? What do you because like I can understand the burnout kind of reasons and the whole thing behind it, but if Richmond were maybe 6-4 or 7-3, do you reckon this is still a thing, or do you reckon this happens? Because I don't know. I would give him the benefit of the doubt in saying that he's completely moral in his reasoning for leaving, but it's the timing's interesting at least.
Well, I reckon there's probably something else behind it that wouldn't get said in the media. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing not everything is going to be said publicly
yeah, of course.
because I mean, yeah, it's hard to say if they're 6-4 with a better record, would he do the same? Well, you probably could say yes because I'm sure there has to be like another reason. I just find it hard to say that he's burnt out. Like
Well, he's been coaching
realistically,
since
why would
2010.
which is a
2010
long time, but
it is.
like you're even you're before midway of the season. I feel like you at least get to the bye, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why I'm just sort of convinced it's probably something else that he doesn't want out in the public. And fair enough, there's things that don't need to be said, but there's nothing wrong with the way he exited. I think he did it really well, so that was you couldn't really complain the way he went out.
Yeah. Yeah, he handled himself with dignity in the way that he went out. The press conference was very showed the character of the man. He was very, very good, obviously. The way he conducted himself was able to have a laugh, have a giggle as well at himself and at the situation, which is obviously good to see. But look, I would think burnout is the main issue. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something else behind the scenes. But yeah, burnout, I don't blame him because the media, like we've already seen this season, obviously multiple coach, or um, there's obviously been other coaches in recent times who have just left, whether it's been them being stood down or them quitting throughout the season. Obviously, coaches this year have been under heavy fire. I mean, Michael Voss, for example, under heavy fire. Like it's obviously something that I wouldn't blame him for feeling in terms of burnout. But I think it's time now. Like, I don't actually have this on StreamYard here, but should we reflect before we look forward? I feel like that's quite apt to do. Let's reflect before we look forward. What are your opinions on Dimmer as a coach? Considering now, I mean, you'd assume that he'd be back that he'd be back at some stage. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. But he's talking about Richmond. Where do you rate him as a coach? Where do you rate the Richmond side? How do you think he's kind of evolved football in a sense? Because his Richmond era, that 2017 to 2020, Richmond team is one of the better sides we've seen. Two extremely dominant grand final performances, and then of course 2020 was a little bit more of a challenge, but they overcame that. He transformed Dustin Martin to being one of the best players in the league, arguably one of the best players to ever play the game. He went through a lot of adversity to get to the point in which he got to with that team. What are your reflections of Dimmer as a coach before, like especially in his Richmond tenure?
Well, very impressive, and it's funny to think if Jordan McMahon kicked a point, he would never have got Dustin Martin, and we might have been looking at a completely different team he ever coached, and you know however many trophies they won. But it's actually weird to think about. I reckon if you gave a rating out of every year he was there out of 10, the average would probably be like 6, just because the first 5-6 years
weren't great. Yeah.
Pretty average. Even though they made finals, they bombed out week ones, and then they hit their strides after that. Yeah. So it was. I'm very surprised they stuck with him. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to do that with a coach that really wasn't giving you much. He was getting you where you needed to, which was finals, but he wasn't producing a premiership team. They're obviously a team that can make finals, but nothing further than that. So to transform that team it just happened in an off season, but obviously there's work that it's longer than that. But in terms of that just quick progression, it just happened. And we've sort of seen in recent years, there's always like one team who jets up. And we saw that with Melbourne from they started 2018. I think it was sort of similar to how Melbourne did it. They had 2015 where they looked like they were promising again, dropped off for a couple of years and then came back all of a sudden. Yeah. And continued a really dominant run like Melbourne did. And he just kept them. They were always, and we still talk about this now, that even when they were having pretty terrible patches, he always got the most out of them in the most crucial times.
Yeah,
and that's what you need sometimes out of a coach and to get out of a playing group. And it's something that not a lot of coaches can do sometimes. And Brisbane's probably the most obvious one at the moment, where it's such a competitive team, but when the moments get very big, Fagan really can't get them to lift and get there. So Hardwick was just a specialist at doing that. Obviously, as Carlton supporters, we never enjoyed what he made Richmond do to us for 9 straight games in a row, however many it was.
Yeah, it was painful.
But no, you can't. You can't disrespect what he did in his coaching tenure, and it was something that made a lot of opposition jealous, just the way his team could lift at the right moment. And they didn't have to perform well for 23 rounds. It was just when it mattered, they were the better team, and it just gelled and it worked together so well.
Yeah, it is one of those things. I mean, you look at the finals record in there. Obviously, they went out against. It was North one year, got pumped by Port at the Oval in a game, which I think Trent Cotchin would like that centre bounce toss back, I feel. And then there was obviously the Carlton game in 13. Then there was those main 3, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm missing one. And then 17 came where who they beat in the first round?
They beat Geelong in the first week.
Yeah, they beat Geelong in the first week. They beat the Giants quite comfortably in the prelim, and then stormed home in the granny. And then even after that, I mean, 2018, they were the best side all year, barring a Mason Cox game of his life in the prelim. They probably make another grand final and win it, right? And then 19, no one really thought they'd be back to where they were. They weren't as good as what they were in 18, but they just got the job done, especially in that grand final. It was a demolition job. And even 2020, even though they lost the first round in 2020. They were just had the mental capacity to come back and win and kind of shut out all the external noise and perform to that level. Even 2022, I mean, they were Tom Lynch kicking a drop punt instead of a left foot snap away from another second week of finals, and who knows where to from there. So yeah, you can't disrespect him in what he's done as a coach. He's been exceptional, and I think when you look at this Richmond team, we'll go from that 2017 to 2020 team, that 3 flags in 4 years. Where do you rank that in terms of eras for AFL clubs? Because it's always the four. It's it's always the four of what is it? Brisbane's three-peat, Hawthorn's three-peat, Geelong's what was it, 4 in 6 or 3 in 6 or whatever it was,
3
and
and
then
5.
3 and 5. That's it. I even got it wrong on 2 attempts. 3 and 5, and then of course it was Richmond's 3 and 4. Where do you rank Richmond's in that 4? Because I mean, even if they're 4th, it's still a very good achievement. But yeah, they'd be one of the best in my opinion.
Well, I'm going to exclude Brisbane because, and I know you too, we can't really speak on it. We saw literally nothing. And if we did, we weren't old enough to remember it. But if those in the comments, please let us know your ranking actually. But it's tough because they weren't really the best team like every year they met. Like
in the home and away
2020, they were so average. But I had a feel. I was like, they'll do it. Like they will do what they need to do and win it. I'd probably, I don't know. Personally, I think they were probably the not weakest, but I would rank them 3rd. I just think the Geelong and Hawthorn teams were much better. And only I say that because they were always clear winners like those years, Hawthorn, Geelong. Whereas Richmond, I feel like a lot of teams were competing with them still throughout that period. So they were still a terrific team. But if we're just going on ranking, I probably sit them 3rd.
Fair enough. It was I mean, their best home and away year, they didn't actually win the flag. 2018, they finished top, I think 2 games clear. And they didn't ever win the flag, which is quite ironic. Whereas the other 3 years, they didn't win the minor premiership in any of those 3 years that they won it.
Well, they were 3rd 2017, 2019.
They definitely weren't top 4, but not top.
Yeah, they weren't top.
Yeah, 2020 Port won the minor premiership. I think they would finish 3rd or 2nd that year.
3rd.
But yeah, 3rd. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite funny how that kind of pans out. But enough with the reflecting. Let's look forward, and let's look forward in 3 different kind of avenues. Firstly, let's look at what's next for Richmond right now. Let's look at what's next for Richmond right now. Before we look at who's going to coach them or whatever, because we'll touch on that next. What's next for them this season? What is because obviously their new interim coach is like, please bring it. If you know it, do you know it?
Is it DT?
No, it's not. It's not. It's not David.
It's not.
It is not. It is someone else.
Sure.
And I'm going to quickly stall as I find out. It is one of their assistant coaches. Their new interim coach will be and is. Bear with me here as I find it. I can't actually find it. It's not here. It's one of their assistant coaches. Who cares? Yeah. So one of their assistant coaches will be interim coach for the rest of the season. I can't believe I forgot.
Andrew McQualter.
That's it. That's who it is. Andrew McQualter. There you go. Yeah, he'll be the interim coach for the rest of the season. What is it? 3 games outside the 8, 2 games outside the 8. I've had a poor start to the season. Obviously, brought in Taranto and Hopper in the attempts to kind of salvage anything any last kind of vestige of this era that they've got. Dusty and Revolt are coming towards the end of their careers. Cochin has moved to that forward role as he's in his twilight of his career. Do they kind of put the cork in this season and just kind of play the kids and just let this season ride out, or do they make one final push for finals and kind of in the last dance kind of thing before they get a new coach and probably rebuild from next season?
Well, I was pretty firm last week that whoever lost Essendon and Richmond, you could pretty much cross out the finals. And I know it was 1 point, but I don't really think Essendon will make the top 8. I don't think neither really looked like they were going to make a real push, but I don't think finals is in talk for them anymore. I just to be
No.
like that was the game that probably just said, okay, yeah, this team, that Richmond team would never have given up that lead with that amount of time to that Essendon team like 2 3 years ago. I know it's a different team, but
Yeah.
as in the Richmond team, that sort of culture with Damien Hardwick, etc. I don't know if you even play your youngsters. Not that they have many, because they've seemingly given them all up in the
Yeah.
future as well. But
Well, they don't have their first pick
yeah,
because they traded. That was obviously involved in
yeah,
the Taranto deal, I think. Um, so even their potential rebuild is going to be tough. Of course, like if we look at the players that played, obviously when you're looking at that next gen, when you're looking at that next gen kind of era for Richmond, Shea Bolton's obviously the cream of the crop. I think he's a genuine star of the competition. He showed obviously on the weekend two goals, 28 touches, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 2 goals, 28 touches, 7 tackles. He was a jet. And if Richmond had won, maybe Zach Merrow was that good that he would have got the medal anyway. But I don't think he would have been far off. If you look at that next gen of players for Richmond, obviously Noah Bolts is probably their next kind of pillar. Same with Josh Gibcus, Daniel Rioli as well. Still has some years. He's 26. So if you look at Taranto, he's got some years. He's 25. So they're kind of middle of the road style players are still there and thereabouts, there or thereabouts in terms of being able to kind of take this club forward. Even Jaden Short as well, 27. He's got some years. He's got some years left, and then you look at the likes of Hugo Ralph Smith, Noah Cumberland, Judson Clark, these type of players, Morris Rioli Jr., these type of players who aren't there yet, probably being held back by the likes of Jack Revard and by Dusty and Cochin, who they're just holding out their spots. I think they can still kind of make a splash in the next coming years, but they have to play very carefully because do you think they're going to go into a full blown rebuild, like cut the list out, kind of start again with a new coach and like dawn a new era for Richmond? Because I mean, last year they played finals. Let's not forget that. Last year they played finals, and like I said, they were this far away from a second week of finals. I don't think you can fall off that quickly. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if they just cut the list out.
I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. They just don't have much depth at all anymore.
Right.
So, and I think the thing with the names that you talked about, the younger ones, your Rioli's, Ralph Smith, etc., like they at least came into the system with a very experienced premiership winning team.
Yeah.
So now in the next couple of years, you're losing that. The kids who are coming in don't have that anymore. And we see that at clubs we know very well. When you come into a system that does not have winning cultures or premiership experience, just finals experience, there's not much to build
You
on.
can
I
run.
think they're in,
Yeah.
I just personally think they're in a lot of trouble, like going forward to build a list now, even if this season does go well, like it's eventually going to get to the point where the depth just like significantly drops off.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough for sure. Because like I can definitely see. Yeah, I can definitely see them. Look, I still think there's one more run in them with this team. I think Revolt's probably done after this season. Maybe 34. Dusty probably should have gone last year. If we're being honest, what it would I mean? He's had a good season, but does he make that team any better? I don't know. Even the likes of McIntosh, Broad, Vlostone, like Pickett, Jack Graham, these type of players who performed so well in a system. I don't know if the new coach can come in and implement a system that will get the best out of the likes of McIntosh or Vloston or Broad or Graham because they were so heavily reliant on that system to perform well. So I think it's about that system to kind of I think once that system breaks down, I think we're going to see them in a lot of trouble. But they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of talent still, which is kind of puts them in that middle ground where it's like you don't really know how to kind of fix it in a sense. It's going to be interesting. Do you think finals is a possibility for them at any stage in the next coming years, or do you think they'll miss out this year and then really gut the list out and go through a rebuild and then not make it for like a couple of years?
Yeah, I don't see finals happening anytime soon, and I'm just sort of trying to compare to Hawthorn. I don't know if it will go as drastic as Hawthorn's sort of downfall went, but I feel like theirs was pretty planned. They sort of very public about the way they were going to do it.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't see finals happening very soon. I mean, I feel like 100% the whole media narrative about the Tigers are pushing back for finals this year will happen again 2 or 3 times this year. It will
Yeah,
happen because they will knock off a good team a couple more times.
for sure.
But this team, I just don't. If they can't beat teams like Essendon, I just don't think. When they're just not going to be able to beat the top teams. Come the end of the season, when it really matters, they'll knock off occasionally, but don't think it will happen on a regular basis. But there's still a chance for them to make finals. Just personally, I just don't think. I think I said last week, there's just too many teams better than them at their best. Even at Richmond's best, I just think a lot of teams can beat that now. It's not Richmond's best it was a couple of years ago now. It's completely different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that kind of transitions well into what is next for Richmond in terms of coaches, who coaches them next. Obviously, assuming their interim coach they don't do a David Teague with Carlton and kind of derail that whole club in hindsight. Who's their next guy? Do you think they go with a more experienced Nathan Buckley, Leon Cameron-esque operator, or do they take a punt on an Adam Uze or someone like that? Because I think whoever they pick defines their next 5 or 6 years. Because if they go with someone like Buckley or Cameron, or even Ken Hinkley, depending on how this season goes for Port, I think that will be that kind of says to the competition, yeah, we still think we can win a flag. Whereas if they punt on someone like a Uze or a Jan Syracuse or someone like that, that kind of says to the comp, like, yeah, right, we're going down the GWS route. We're going to really revamp everything, revamp the culture, start fresh, and really go full steam ahead into this rebuild. What do you reckon they'll go with?
I would say they've got to start fresh. I don't know why you would pick someone with real experience like a Nathan Buckley type. I don't really see any point in that with the list, where the list is at. It's very hard to. I would like to see him bring in someone who's been through development systems and like that has the ability to step up as a head coach. I don't know who that would be because it's hard to just. There's so many out there and haven't planned enough to give you a name. But people who have, if you've got people who have been with development systems, even at AFL, at AFL level, bring someone in who can revitalize a team with the right strategies. Because if you bring in someone with experience like Nathan Buckley and put a whole new game plan, and some of those players just probably won't be ready. That's the reality. Those players have been brought into Dimmer's game style, his game plan. That's what they're used to. But it would have taken. They were guided by that experience, right? With premiership experience, that know that game style so well. So you just probably need to get someone in who can refresh it. Everyone starts from the start. It's a really tough one. Like I've never actually thought about Richmond getting a new coach. You just feel like it's actually very weird to sit here and say that sentence because you assume he's been fired saying that. It's just so out of nowhere.
Yeah, very strange. Touching on that, if they give the job to Andrew McQualter, who's currently got the gig now, what do you think that says? Do you think that is because, like you said just then, how they're kind of adjusting how all these younger players are used to the dimmer system? Do you think implementing an assistant who would implement the same strategies says, all right, we're still going to go with one final push to win this flag, to win another flag with a new coach who can offer a little bit of differences, but he still has the main system? Or does it go the other way where it's like, all right, new, young, inexperienced coach, start fresh? If they go with McQualter, what does that scream for you? Because to me, I actually don't know. It's a bit of both, but I would say that if they go with McQualter, they're still trying to get something out of what they've got instead of starting completely fresh.
Well, if they do go with him, it's probably just they don't want to lose that sense of familiarity with their game style and mean, there's nothing stopping him from changing it at the same
There's
time if they back him with his coaching ability and he's going to offer something different, or even if he just offers something on top of what they've already created, then there's no reason to say no. But it would be interesting, and it's not like McQualter doesn't come from a very successful team and era where that that St Kilda side dominated. So, in terms of strategy goes, and have been around that club for so long, clearly they know how to coach. People at Richmond, they know how to coach. It's probably whether it just will transfer with this new batch and group of players that eventually come through the system in the next couple of years.
For sure. If you have to take a punt, another second guess, wild stab at it. Who coaches in 2024 and beyond? I'll start things off. The next coach of the Richmond Football Club will be Leon Cameron.
I've not thought about this at all. Mate, Ange Postecoglou could coach him for all I care, mate.
They could. Oh, that'd be good. That'd be great to see. Although he's a Carlton man, let's not forget. This is on the run sheet, so you should have done your research. That's all I'm saying. Leon Cameron will coach.
That's still a tough question, regardless of if it's on the sheet or not.
Just say a name.
I'll say Adam Uzo, mate. I'll say him.
There you go. Nice.
That's what I'll go with.
Lovely. All right. Is that it for... Oh, yeah, okay. And before we move on, let's finish things up by looking at the actual party. What's next for Dimmer? Keep this brief. What do you think happens with him? Does he take a year? Does he take 2024 off? Does he coach Tassie? Does he go to Gold Coast? Where does he go? Because I heard on the radio that he does. Oh no, I heard on the Tradies podcast actually that he obviously has some connections up at the Gold Coast. A couple of backroom staff, a couple of players as well, Ellis and Joel. So that could be a potential thing. Stewie G is under pressure. Where's his next gig? Keep it short and sweet. Where's his next gig if he does get another gig? And what year is it in?
Oh, personally, I don't think he'll coach again.
Really? Do you think he's done?
Yeah, I don't know. Like the way it's happened, I just don't see, like, I don't know, just go out on a good note. And yes, it was middle of the season, but that's just, I don't know. I just don't see why you would come back and ruin what you started. Because realistically, at the age he's at, how long is a club going to get him for? If he does come back.
He's 50. He's 50 right now. So he's got time.
He does, but let's say he comes in for Tassie, like, you're not going to get that 10 years that, and 13 years, that Richmond had him for. Like, if a club wants that, it's probably not going to happen. So unless the club is willing, I reckon he'll go back to a team, if he does come back, like a Gold Coast, that needs quick improvement and needs to go up the ranks as quick as possible. You get him there 2 or 3 years, does a job, and you probably call retirement completely. But tell me your thoughts, because I just don't have a club in mind, because I'm just pretty convinced he won't come back to it.
Fair enough. My mind went straight to the Gold Coast. The Suns or Tassie. I think he could do a little bit of a Ross line, take a bit of a sabbatical. Probably not go into the media. I think he'd be great in the media. I think he would, but I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll have a sabbatical, come back, coach Tassie, do a little bit of a who coached GWS in their first year. He's Jay Howard. Have I forgotten this?
Shady.
That's it. Jesus Christ, that's poor. He'll do something like that. Come in, coach them for a bit, nurture them, and then he'll leave again for good. If I had to say, although I wouldn't be surprised if I don't think he'll coach next year. I think he'll take the full next year off. 2025 potentially Gold Coast. Put that in there. But I don't think he's coaching next year. I do think he's completely done. So there you go. As we move on, as we get off the Richmond talk, 34 minutes. That's not surprising. But before we move on, Lachlan, thank you very much for the $2 again. There you go. Improvements.
I'm like, okay, well, look, I did say to Ari pre-show, I feel like my mic doesn't work during some shows, and it does during some. So obviously it's worked this week, which is good. So I'm happy you can hear the difference. And I did hear it last night on the show we were on, so it wasn't on. Didn't feel like I was on. So I do think it. I'm glad you saw. I'm glad you can hear that, Lachlan, and it's good to know. It's
There you go.
helpful to know.
There you go. I mean, I didn't really notice a difference, but maybe that's because I'm deaf. I wouldn't be surprised. As I'm like 18, but 19 even, but I've got the body of a 70-year-old. Anyways, let's move on and let's brighten things up. Let's speak about interchange gate in brackets gate, and I'm really proud of this. This is my best ever work. This is unbelievable. I'm so funny. Interchange gate. Of course, North Melbourne managed to lose a game of football in the funniest way you could ever manage to lose a game of football. Watch Carlton lose by an even funnier way on Friday, just quietly. But did you watch the game, or were you out? Were you with the 18s? Did you not catch this?
No, well, I was at my cousin's house, and this is Italian household. So if you have a ethnic background, Italian Greek background, you'll know that leaving one of those houses, the goodbyes can last quite a while.
Yeah, the goodbyes are
so
half
I had
of
it
the
on.
stay.
I had it on.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I actually caught the end of the game purely because I reckon when we started to move out, 6-7 minutes by the time we left, 30 seconds to go. So I did actually catch the end of that game by luck. I thought, I mean, if Sheasel kicked that goal, that was North's win, and he didn't. And Sydney really escaped with that one. But I had no volume on. So for me, I had no idea what was going on. It was like, and I'm assuming that's what it was like for people at the game as well. All I saw was them just waiting. I thought it was a blood rule. I was convinced
I thought it was as well.
I
thought it was as well. Yeah.
I was just looking up and down. I got sort of phone was there, but I wasn't really like focused on it. And then I saw, was it McLean? He had I think it was him. He had the kick, and I was like, okay, what's going on here then?
Yeah.
And then I read Twitter, and then that's where I found out. So a very weird way to find out how a team won a game.
It was, and I had a uni assignment, and part of my uni assignment the assignment was I had to do a match report on a game, and I didn't do it on Friday night because I don't think I was home, and I wasn't going to do it Sunday because I wasn't going to be home for the games that I'm not doing on Collingwood, and so I had to pick a game on Saturday. I was like, I can't be bothered doing it like Saturday Arvo, just in case like I have to do something Saturday, so just in case something comes up Saturday night. If I need to be anywhere, if I need to be a taxi for anyone, whatever, right? So I was like, I won't do it Saturday, I won't do it Saturday night. So I'll do it Saturday afternoon, like early afternoon. And I picked the other game to do it on. However, if my uni tutor is not watching, I didn't watch any of the game I was meant to watch. I did just watch the Sydney North Melbourne game. And if my uni tutor is watching, firstly, subscribe. Secondly, that's a joke, all for comedic effect. So I was meant to be writing a match report on Western Bulldogs Adelaide, and instead I was screaming at my TV, wondering what the hell was going on. Okay, who do you like? I don't even know where you go from here, because it's like, is this the funniest thing to ever happen in a game of football? Like, is it? Like, especially to lose a game of football.
Well, look, it was the right game for it to happen at, because, no offense, but North Melbourne home game, probably the best scenario of where this game could have, event could have happened.
Imagine round 23 last year.
It would just, that
would be riots.
It did. It really did happen at the best possible game for it to happen.
Yeah.
It's so stiff in the way it happened. Awful in the way it happened. Real get out of jail free card for the Swans. You probably could have crossed them out if they had lost to North.
Very much so. Very much so. And yes, Pommy, that is exactly that's exactly what it is. They're just lining up my phone. Phone's blowing up. You know how it is. So of course, obviously it was like the coming off with cramp. Liam Shield coming off with cramp. They actually made 77 interchanges because Shield came off with cramp for the 76, and then they had to reverse that, but the wrong player came off. So they actually technically made 77. So there you go. Who do you attribute blame? Is it? It's not the players. You can't.
No,
It's
you can't be the players.
did someone get sacked? Do you reckon? Interchange Stewart get sacked? Is that even a job? Is that on
Oh,
Seek right now? Can I apply? Because that'd be great.
oh, sure. Oh, if someone lost their job, that is so stiff.
Well,
Like,
they cost their club like of all
well,
people to cost their club 4 points.
yeah, but like there was 50 seconds. The Swans still could have scored a winning goal. Like it wasn't literally the last kick of the game. Pretty rough. Lucky North Melbourne aren't in the battle for the top 8, or else probably would have had probably heavier implications on that person if they did.
Yeah.
But that is just so stiff. Like,
Yeah, very stiff.
Like, imagine just trying to explain that to someone who's come to watch AFL for the first time. Hey, mate, look, one too many. Look, there's one too many people came off, and pretty much free shot and goal.
Yeah,
like that's just
it's a free
nuts.
kick and 50. And 50.
The 50, I don't agree with. I don't.
The 50 is a bit hager. It is. The 50 is a bit hager.
I think it looked worse. Well, it was obviously worse because of where the ball was. And that's sort of where it's a grey area, because if it's in the back line, well, then it's like, then it doesn't matter. So.
Yeah. Well, the rule was adjudicated to perfection. The rule was like the umpires did their job. Like, if anyone's blaming the umpires, you're stupid, with all due respect, because they did their job to absolute perfection.
Yeah.
Absolute perfection. A rare time where the umpires deserve credit for making a call like that, a ballsy call like that with 50 seconds to go. If it's there, you pay it. So credit to them, right? Fair plays on that part of things. But it was just insane, just really insane to kind of it typified the most turmoil filled week for North of all time. Yes. Okay. Just let's clarify that Mrs. Pommy doesn't know what Tinder is. Just clarifying that. It was like, how do you miscount? How do you miscount? Surely they could just be like, right, 76. That's like 74, 75. Okay, stop. Just stay on the ground. Just like fall over.
Yeah, the iPad stuff is mental. Like, I remember last year, the Dragons, like the thing's like nuts. Like, it must be like, if you were a normal person, it cost you $39.99 in the App Store. It's just like, how can you, like, with that software, how can you even just remotely get close to making that mistake? But
maybe
greatest tank. Maybe
it was all part of the master plan.
There we go.
Maybe West Coast kind of derailed that kind of tanking.
That, you know what? That's Jordan McMahon type stuff there, actually, because
that's saying North going this dynasty. Sliding doors.
Yeah, that. Imagine it was that interchange gate that won us
in
3 premierships.
In 2032, in 2032, there's going to be a YouTube video how Liam Shields won North Melbourne 7 flags. I can't wait to watch that.
Could happen.
Is that genuinely though? Genuinely, like, that is one of these moments where it's like,
it is.
We could be looking back at this in 10 years and thinking, geez, if Liam Shields just didn't get cramp. If Liam Shields didn't get cramped, North wouldn't be winning as many flags as they're winning, which is kind of a bit weird to think about, to be honest. But anyway, let's finish things up. Let's move to Adelaide, and we're going to stay in Adelaide for 2 teams. Obviously, the 2 teams in Adelaide, the Pair and the Crom. Who do we start with? Do we start with Nathan giving himself credit, or me abusing Nathan?
Start with Port.
Let's start with Port. Let's start with the Pair, and the floor is yours. Your apology is accepted.
Okay.
Just forewarning, but the floor is yours, please.
Okay. I was wrong about Port Adelaide. They've proven me wrong. But there's a but to this.
Oh, great.
Good team. They will make finals. I had them out of my top 8. They will make finals, but they still do not have a team to win a premiership. That team is still expired. It will not win you a premiership.
Interesting.
And you're saying you just got to go back to round 2, Collingwood. That tells you everything you need to know about that team still. They just don't have it in them to win a premiership. But I apologise, and I was wrong. They will make finals, but they're not going to win a premiership.
Well, you say this. Zach Butters is looking a player, right? He had one of the best games I've ever seen.
It was a
He
top game.
was
Yes.
he was unbelievably good. Connor Rosie kicked the winner. They had no forward line. They had no forward line. They were playing not Riley Bonner, another halfback that plays for them. He used to play for Hawthorn. No, name escaped me for a second. No, another one. No, well, he's at Hawthorn right now. He used to play for Hawthorn. Ryan Burton, that's it.
Okay,
Ryan Burton was playing forward for them, I'm pretty sure. So they had no forward line, no Dixon, no Georgiades. Obviously, he's out for the year. That just quietly, that's a shattering for the Greek community, by the way. And obviously Todd Marshall as well. He wasn't playing. No Junior Rioli as well. I don't think he was playing. So yeah, a lot out, and they still got the chocolates against arguably one of the best teams in the competition. Look. I think they're there. I think they're contending. I genuinely think they're contending.
I don't know. I don't see them. I don't know. Just that team's expired. I just think like they'll be good with that team they've got, but I just don't see them if they ever got to a grand final. If they played at Collingwood, if they played Melbourne in a grand final, even if they played Brisbane, I just don't see them beating those teams. Brisbane actually in finals are apparently a different team. So maybe Brisbane, but Melbourne and Collingwood, I just don't see them being able to overcome. And look, I would probably retire from journalism in general if they win the premiership.
Here we go. If Port Adelaide win a premiership,
yeah. This is my account. This is my version of your accountant thing.
No, not your version. If Port Adelaide win the premiership, you become an accountant.
Yes, yeah.
Say it.
If Port Adelaide win the premiership, I'll become an accountant. There we go.
There you go. Great. I'm going to tweet that as well from this account. Just let's clip that because it will happen, and I'll hold you to it. Because all of mine.
Mate. Well, I won't. You won't hold me to it because I'll be gone. I'll be off socials. I will be at an accounting firm. You won't actually get hold of me.
Good. I'm glad.
Oh, you must have been so glad with City pulling through in the end. I mean,
I'll tell you why I say this thing because I know it's not going to happen. That's why.
Well, I'm pretty confident it's not going to happen as well. See, I believe the only way they'll win it is if they play Brisbane in a grand final.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Oh well, if Pom's that confident as well, maybe he wants to do that though. So
I'd watch. Support. Well, yeah, support local businesses and that. I'll watch. Anyways, let's move on swiftly, shall we? From anything else you have to say? Any more apologies you have to say? No,
I stated my opinion. They'll make finals, so I take my latter prediction was they would finish 10th, I think. So that it was wrong. It looks very wrong.
Good. All right, now you can gloat. Go on, gloat.
Okay, so at the end, now I think I said this on the show last week. I don't know if I actually said it or maybe I said it off camera to you, but I'm under firm belief Adelaide are very, very phony. I do not think they are going to challenge that. Like, if they make finals, it will genuinely be because they win every single game in Adelaide. This team becomes a completely different team once they travel. They're not the same. They do not have the fans behind them. Yeah, I've got to say the umpiring in Adelaide is pretty favourable for Adelaide. If they lose all of that, completely different team. And you said to me at the end of the pod, you're like, nah, it's just they're good. They're good. You just don't like them. And sure, maybe half of that's true.
Most of that's
personally, true. I don't love Adelaide, but I don't think they're that good. I just am not convinced with Adelaide that they're much chop apart from in Adelaide. And, spoiler with my tips, but I will tip them this week because they're in Adelaide. I just will never tip them outside of Adelaide unless it is against the bottom teams. And even when it was against Hawthorn, 3 points. So I just can't take them seriously.
They're good, but they're good.
If they were good, they should be doing it pretty comfortably outside of Adelaide against teams like Hawthorn. The Giants game, I feel like the weather, it was just they would pour outside of Adelaide. I guess, yes, it was hot. Maybe I'm just letting bias get to me on that call, right? Still, Giants, Hawthorn couldn't beat Giants, just beat Hawthorn out of Adelaide. And then the Dogs, like, let's be real, they're probably on par with the Dogs, aren't they? And probably better if you go off the form they were in, right? The teams they were beating by the margins they were winning by, they should have beaten the Dogs.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not set on them. I just don't.
Well, let's look at their away kind of their away games, I should say. They play Gold Coast in Carrara. No, they don't. They play Gold Coast at Aotearoa Stadium. They don't play them in Carrara. You know?
No, I've got my cat scratching at my door. I'm going to let her in just so I don't have to endure that.
Let the cat in. Let the cat in. Oh, cute cat. Very nice. Very good.
There we go.
Yeah, nice. What does the cat think? Cat watch any footy?
Oh, look, not a big footy fan. She liked the soccer when she was a kid, and she'd chase the soccer ball around on the TV. So, bit of a round ball fan.
There you go. Maybe I might get her on the pod as a guest, special guest. Anyways, back on track. Gold Coast at Aotearoa Stadium. Do they win that?
No.
Okay. Collingwood at the J?
No. Like that will be the game that solidifies my point. Because because if we base off what we saw against them, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that 1 point game, they're level with each other. That's what can we agree on that? They're level. If we go that they were that even, that it was 1 point separating them. But if we're just going off that game, I don't think they're even. But
I understand where you're coming from. No, I get it.
If a completely different result happens in Melbourne, which I think it will, I reckon Collingwood will belt them. It just totally a phony team out of Adelaide, like literally a one stadium team.
Okay, they've got Essendon at Marvel.
Fair Essendon, yeah, like that. I just can't see them being
Melbourne at the J.
Yep, Melbourne.
Brisbane at the Gabba.
Brisbane comfortably.
And then West Coast over there.
Well, that's your. Well, I said the bottom 3 teams are different.
Sure. Well, you say that
out of those games, well, no, the Collingwood, Brisbane, Melbourne, do you see them winning those?
No, but I just think because the other teams are better teams, not because they can't play away. Like they've been murdered with their away form. Like I think they'll beat the Suns. I think they beat the Suns. Collingwood are just a better team. I think they'll beat Essendon, and then Melbourne and Brisbane are just better teams. So they'll win 2 of them. They'll win 3 of their next 6 home games for the rest of the season. I'll go 50-50. Even we look at their away games right now. The Bulldogs at Mars, okay, that's probably a poor performance. In Geelong, they're a better team. They beat Hawthorn. You can say only by 2 points, but they beat them. And then GWS, all right, that's probably disappointing. But I just think they're just versing sides who are better than them for the most part, away from home.
Geelong's the only team that's been better than them. During that game, they came in on much better. Like they were hot.
Yeah.
Bulldogs. Okay, Bulldogs. You can make the argument, but the way Adelaide have been playing, you would have thought the way Adelaide play, which is very front running football, should have beaten the team like the Dogs.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Oh, I would.
This
say
could backfire on me, but I seriously, I just can't take them seriously. I just think it's hot or cold, and it's hot in Adelaide, cold anywhere else.
Do you think
they can't do it out of Adelaide?
Yes, because
I've said before,
one of their away games for the rest of the season.
Probably because, I've told you, a couple of times, win your home games, right? And all you literally have to do is win 1 or 2 away games. And they've done 1 with Hawthorn, and they probably will.
Put Adelaide as well, technically.
Yeah. Well, yes, that does count. So you add that Gold Coast game to it.
And the West Coast.
You probably do. And West Coast, they probably will.
I think they'll make finals.
But I don't think that will finish. I don't think that will put them in. I don't see them finishing above 7th, really. Like, I think they'll get in comfortably, but like just for the bottom 2 positions.
Fair.
So
Yeah, I don't see them finishing higher
um,
than 7th. 6th at an absolute push. Pom obviously has his take. I think this is very unfair. Quietly, Jordan Dawson exists. Rory Laird exists. Darcy Fogarty, Riley Thorpe, they exist. But anyways, let's finish things up. And as we always do, let's preview the week. We actually might tick in under an hour. This has been a good show. Not a lot of fat on the show. Just quite. We've hit the points. We've hit the points nicely. Let's move on. Friday night, Sydney Carlton. Go on.
Yeah, as you know, why do you ask the question? Sydney, in
They
my
have
honest
no
opinion,
defenders. They have
yes,
no
I know.
defenders.
You quite verbally before show went at me, and I'm very like on the fence. I have hope, but hope kills me a lot of the time with this club. That I don't care who plays for the opposition. It's us that is the problem. 9 times out of 10.
Nathan.
So
their defense
and look, you look like
Aaron
the idiot
Francis.
next week if Sydney get up.
They won't because it's Aaron Francis. It's Aaron Francis and Nick Blakey or Will Gould or Robbie Fox against Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. There is zero chance Carlton lose on Friday.
You think I don't want you to be right? You think I don't want you to be
Carlton
right?
Lose on Friday night.
Well, I hope you're right. I don't want us to lose. I just
you haven't tipped us any game this year. You tipped North.
Because I've told you my reason. Because I told you my reason.
Is it happiness insurance? Is that what it is?
Well, exactly. Because if we lose, at least I got a tip right, and if we win, I didn't get a tip right, but we've won. So
I hate you.
You win either way. So that's why.
An absolute crap. Let's move on swiftly before I run to you and punch you in the head. See? Good. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
I want you two to be right, but I just...
Well, we are going to be right. Okay, let's move on to a cracking day of Saturday football, starting with St Kilda Hawthorn at Marvel. Can't wait. This game's going to be entertaining.
I opted out of this one.
Again, good.
I'll be at Preston City Oval on Saturday to watch Northern Knights and Oakley. So hope that will be closer than St Kilda and Hawthorn. But Saints.
Moving on, Melbourne versus the Fremantle Dockers.
This is tough because Freo actually knocked them off there last year.
Yeah, they bet
which makes me rethink. But I'm going with the safe option and saying Melbourne get it done.
Do I? No, I'm
this is a content tip, yeah. And you're gonna go, Freo. It's a content tip, this one, which I'm 2 from 2 with the content tip. So
I don't care.
I will go with one more. I'll go with a content tip for this round, but I'm not sure where I'll put it.
Geelong Giants.
Oh, Geelong. This is in Geelong, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Gold Coast versus the Western Bulldogs.
Content tip, Gold Coast. Conditions suit Gold Coast.
I'm not even content tipping Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast will win.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to pick another content one.
Yeah, I have to pick another one. Yeah.
West Coast Essendon.
No, I can't content. The rest of the game sucks. I can't.
I'm doing it. West Coast.
I'm not content tipping that. That's rubbish. You cannot content tip a team who's 18th who just lost by 116 points to 17th. Like that is not justifiable.
It's Essendon.
It is Essendon, but they're not as bad this year.
Richmond Port.
Essendon. Is this a Sunday game? Oh, that's odd. Richmond. Oh.
At the Jason.
Content tip. Richmond. Richmond get up.
I wouldn't even say that's content, to be honest, because new manager bounce.
Oh, you can't keep saying this that everything's. Oh yeah, well actually, that new coach thing would actually lean towards Richmond with the stat, isn't it? Isn't it like very
I
good
don't know.
for an interim
No,
coach?
fuck knows. Who knows?
Richmond anyway.
Collingwood North.
Collingwood.
At Marvel away game for the Pies. It's an away game for Collingwood because
No, it's oh yeah, away, yeah.
God forbid, the Collingwood Football Club play one game a year, 20 minutes
Tough,
down
huh?
the road. God forbid. Oh, the world's ending. God forbid.
Well, good on the North
Yeah,
fans for selling it out, I must say.
yeah. North fans,
They've done well.
unbelievable effort from North Melbourne. They got to give
Big
them credit
effort.
where credit's due. Yeah, unbelievable effort from North there. So, in this neutral game at a neutral venue, who are we going with?
Pies.
Yeah, Collingwood. Collingwood quite comfortably, I would think. And then Adelaide versus the Brisbane Lions to end the round in Adelaide, 4:40. You've already said Adelaide will win. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will. How many do we differ? We differ on 1, 2, 3, 4. Should we differ
Do
on
you want to
5?
see? You didn't actually say the scores before the tips. Do you want to let people know of the?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I'm gonna go Adelaide. I'll back them in with you. So yeah, they're the ones that we differ on. There's a couple of ones we differ on. We differ on 5. As we yeah, so you got 7 last round. I got 4. So it's 44 to 18. No, 44 to 58 even. So I've got
So
to catch
unless I
you.
do an Arsenal here, it's. I mean, there is an effort needed to claw this back.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to do it because I'm great. All right. Let's finish things up. That is all. Thank you very much for watching another episode of The Rest. It's been great. I've enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Blue Broad YouTube channel. 400 away from 10K. So that'll be very good. Also, there's a super chat which we need to answer. $2 again from Lachlan. This is a blue Yeti mic. Those ones. Plug it into my laptop.
Yeah, mine's the Apple earphones, so high quality.
It does the job.
It does the job. Does the
job to a very good level. Yeah, thank you very much for watching once again. Subscribe. 400 away from Blue Broad, from 10K for Blue Broad, which is great. Follow us both on Twitter at @R_Y_Stammer at Nathan Seppi. We'll be back again next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. See you guys next week. Goodbye.